What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, this week we have a new event to look forward to from Nintendo and the Pokemon Company that should give us more of a look at Scarlet and Violet, but I have a feeling there could be a couple of surprises there. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony responding to the deal between Microsoft and Activision as it is still pending, but some of the answers Sony was giving makes them look very, very concerned around the whole thing. We'll go over that today. And we're also going to be talking about Digimon Survive, as Bandai Namco ran a very head-scratching marketing campaign that actually had it get hit pretty hard on Metacritic. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with the Sega Genesis Mini that's out at the end of October, but it has a very strange, production and distribution where it looks like it's going through Amazon Japan that's also linked to Amazon US, and it's a very odd situation there. So much so that Ars Technica decided to reach out to Sega to figure out who exactly is producing and distributing this thing, and they came back with an answer that's pretty concerning if you're someone who wants to get this device. We can see this over on Ars Technica, where, according to Sega, they say the number of units for the project makes up around 1/10 of the total for the previous Genesis Mini. Now, this, according to them, has to do with the overall shortage when it comes to chips, semiconductors, all of this, which is something we've been hearing for a little while now, obviously. But I kind of feel like there were some red flags when they told us to go to Amazon Japan, basically, to order it for any shipping address in the US, whereas typically they would have probably just distributed it normally through Amazon US. Again, very odd situation here. I'm just hoping I'm able to get a hold of one of these things so we can take a look at it. Also, in case you were not aware, Google Stadia is still running. It hasn't shut down yet. In fact, there was a rumor that was going around the other day online that they were planning on shutting the service down here in like a month or two, and it got to the point where Stadia decided to respond. We can see this over on Twitter. After being asked, "Are you closing down soon?" Stadia responded, simply saying, "Stadia is not shutting down. Rest assured, we're always working on bringing more great games to the platform and Stadia Pro. Let us know if you have other questions." I actually get emails all the time because I still have the subscription that these different games are going into the service. And it's basically acting more as a marketplace and a platform. And that's kind of no first-party studios or anything that are creating unique and original games to take advantage of the cloud infrastructure. And I still think that's kind of how Google just wants to position this going forward for any other companies that may want to use that as just a streaming platform to reach more people. The problem is, not a lot of people use Stadia, and a lot of people don't even know it exists anymore. Right? Seriously, people were not surprised to hear that it looked like Stadia was shutting down for a time. And I mean, Stadia's not going to come out and say, well, the rumor's correct. It's not shutting down for a few months, but yeah, we're going away here soon. I think it's just going to continue to roll along until Google decides to quietly shutter it, and it'd take a little while, I think, to kind of wind down. And again, people probably won't notice it when it does happen because they don't notice it now that it actually works. Oh, and the saga around Tactics Ogre Reborn continues, as now we have another classification that was spotted online by Wario64. We can see this over in Australia, Tactics Ogre Reborn. It has now been rated. And what's interesting about this is people were curious if it was like a PlayStation exclusive or something. I mean, at least here it says that it's multi-platform. I guess that technically could be, hey, it's on PlayStation and on PC. I think that they're just going to put this basically everywhere they can for the most part. So I think at least PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Hey, maybe Xbox. We'll see there. But this thing's popped up on different websites. It's popped up on PlayStation deals. On the PlayStation Store itself, now through the Australia Ratings Board. So I assume it's just getting announced at any time. It'll probably just pop up on Twitter, unless they're saving it for an event. Maybe Sony, if they have something this month or in September, like many of us are thinking they will, that's where Tactics Ogre Reborn will be announced. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a new event to look forward to this week from the Pokemon Company and Nintendo. We can see this tweet that was posted up. This from Pokemon saying, "Tune into our YouTube channel on Wednesday, August 3rd, 6 a.m. Pacific or 9 a.m. Eastern for a Pokemon Presents video presentation with updates on Pokemon apps and video games, including Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I mean, there's still a lot of things they have to tell us about Scarlet and Violet because there have been so many leaks that have gotten, I mean, it's out of control right now. And I guess we'll find out how many of those leaks are legit and how many are made up and just kind of mixed in there. But they have to go over the core mechanics in the game. I'm sure some of the gimmicks, maybe just new Pokemon to show off. I don't know if they'll show off any of the evolutions for the 3 starters until we get like right up against release, or who knows, maybe they just kind of leave them as surprises, depending on, of course, which one you pick there. But knowing the internet, they'll probably put those up online after the games leak out a week early, like last time when we saw that with like Sword and Shield and all of this. But they do also have to go over the open world aspect to the game. There's still a lot of questions as to how that will work, and it sounds a bit iffy based on things like levels not scaling, and maybe they're just being a more difficult route and one that's just an easy route. But otherwise, they're going to basically be, I'm sure, going over Scarlet and Violet for the most part in this presentation, as they're setting that up as their big holiday title in November. But they do mention video games and apps. Do we finally see Pokemon Sleep again? I'm still unsure as to what exactly that's going to be. So every time we get one of these events, I'm just hoping it's there so that we can finally get the explanation as to what they were showing us that one day when you had like a thing you put on your bed as you were sleeping and Pokemon would like level up and stuff. I'm sure that'll be an interesting thing to see if it actually shows up there. Otherwise, though, we could see some sort of spin-off from them, whether it's a cell phone game or maybe they do have another game kind of off to the side from Scarlet and Violet, like you can see a Mystery Dungeon-esque game. And that's the one thing I'll give the Pokemon Company and Game Freak credit for, is while everything's been struggling with delays happening and all this stuff due to the pandemic and remote work, it kind of feels like the Pokemon Company actually ramped up their releases. Obviously, we had like Legends Arceus, and then before that, we had Diamond and Pearl, and now we have Scarlet and Violet. And if they get another game in there, it'd be a pretty solid release lineup for about a year's time. But the presentation's slated to be roughly 20 minutes long, so let's say half of that is Scarlet and Violet. I'll be curious what the other 10 minutes or so could be. Maybe we could, like I said, see a spin-off game that comes out in the next couple of months, or maybe we finally get a look at a new application or Pokemon Sleep. We'll see, but certainly want to be checking this one out tomorrow morning. Next up, let's talk about Sony and their response to the Microsoft Activision deal, which this was going around all over the place yesterday online because it doesn't seem like Sony is too excited at the idea of Microsoft just outright owning specifically Call of Duty, which makes sense. There's a lot of uncertainty from Sony's standpoint there for a game that brings in a lot of money to the PlayStation Store. But essentially, obviously this has to be approved all over the world in several different countries and regulatory bodies. One of them is in Brazil, and it appears that kind of the review process for this with questionnaires that went out started at the end of May, and a lot of it's kind of been made public. Some information's been redacted, especially when it comes down to like straight up financial numbers, information from other companies like Activision, Blizzard, maybe having their Call of Duty revenue put out there. But some of the answers are pretty interesting to see from Sony, as go figure, they're the ones that seem to take it the most seriously. Over on Reset Era, a person went through and transcribed many of the questions with Sony in mind. And some of the other companies that were asked about things with the questionnaire include Warner Bros., Ubisoft, Bandai Namco, Apple, Riot Games, Amazon, Google, Meta, and for the most part, none of them really seem to have an issue with this, which, if you're a company like, say, I don't know, Apple or Amazon or Google, you're probably not going to push back against this too much, because you may want to make your own acquisition at some point and you don't want like any of these words to come back on you. Or if you're Ubisoft, hey, you might be looking to get bought at some point. I mean, Ubisoft's looking kind of sketchy as it is, so I'm sure they're all for some of these big acquisitions right now. Now, I mentioned that Call of Duty was brought up a lot by Sony, and that seemed to be one of their biggest talking points, and VGC actually transcribed many of the answers. We can see, saying, according to a 2019 study, the importance of Call of Duty to entertainment in general is indescribable. The brand was the only video game IP to break into the top 10 of all entertainment brands among fans, joining powerhouses such as Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, and The Lord of the Rings. Call of Duty is so popular that it influences users' choice of consoles, and its community of loyal users is entrenched enough that even if a competitor had the budget to develop a similar product, it would not be able to rival it. They go on to say each annual Call of Duty release takes around 3 to 5 years to develop. As Activision releases one Call of Duty game per year, this equates to an annual investment of hundreds of millions of dollars. Approximately 1,200 people work on each version, and another 1,500 are involved in publishing and distribution. Isn't that ridiculous, by the way? About 2,700 people are like involved with a Call of Duty game from start to finish. I mean, just wild stuff there. Basically, they go on to just put over Call of Duty as this behemoth of a release, which it is every year. Even if it doesn't do well like Vanguard, it's still generally at the top of the MPD charts, and it usually is like the top of the charts for just revenue generated overall, which for Sony is big time. That is a massive revenue stream. In fact, they just seem to separate Call of Duty from everything else on the PlayStation Store. And I mean, think about the microtransactions that come with Call of Duty that Sony's also benefiting from. So even if there's like a small chance that Microsoft might just stop releasing Call of Duty on PlayStation, they have to take it seriously. And it looks like here they're bringing that up as a big reason why this deal should not be allowed to go through. Now, after Call of Duty, they do talk about subscription services, because remember, Microsoft's big play here with getting Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda is to bolster their first-party lineup so that they can have many releases throughout a year to hold up Game Pass and make it a very compelling pickup, right? They said they agree that subscription services compete with games purchased for a one-time fee, but they think that the lowest upfront costs of subscription services could be anti-competitive in relation to publishers who recoup the significant investments in games by selling them for an upfront fee. They also think that this could harm consumers by reducing the quality of games. Now, obviously, Sony raised the price of their games to $70, so they're not too happy looking across, seeing Microsoft coming in at like $15 a month for Game Pass. And Sony has gone on record a couple of times saying they don't believe that the Game Pass model is something that they could maintain with the current, I'll say, quality and investments that they are doing with their big-time first-party games. They also say that Game Pass has grown to capture approximately 60 to 70% of the global subscription services market. That market share is even greater in Brazil, where Game Pass represents approximately 70 to 80% of the PC subscription services market. They believe that it would take several years for a competitor, even with substantial investments, to create a rival effective for Game Pass. Also, I'm sure Call of Duty in general is one of the reasons that people would be subscribing to the PlayStation Plus like essential tier so that they can play online, right? Like, you don't need it for Fortnite, you don't need it for Apex Legends, those are free to play titles. But when that big new Call of Duty, that premium experience that costs you 60 or 70 bucks comes out, you do need that PlayStation Plus subscription. I'm sure they see a bunch of people sign up or renew their subscription so they can play online with their friends, and the idea that people will potentially leave PlayStation to go to the Xbox for Call of Duty, well, they might be taking their subscription dollars with them. I mean, looking up and down their answers to these different questions that some of these companies apparently didn't spend much time at all. Apple barely answered the stuff and just kind of kept moving. Sony seems really concerned about this. Now, they should be. Call of Duty, while there are a lot of people I'm sure who've fallen out of it, it's still like the top grossing game every single year. We go over the MPD sales charts and we'll look, and a Call of Duty from 2 years ago will be in like the top 5. And we're like, what is going on here, right? So I kind of think Sony is looking at this and saying, maybe if we really put Call of Duty on a pedestal here with these questionnaires, some of these different regulatory bodies will realize that it would be bad for the marketplace and the industry if Microsoft just wholly owned it, and the potential for Microsoft to take Call of Duty and put it just on Xbox and Game Pass, even if it's like a small potential right now. Like, it's not as obvious because Microsoft is saying things like, no, we'll leave it everywhere. I mean, who's to say in 3 or 4 years after this deal is through, after Sony's like their marketing deal, which is apparently a multi-year deal over the next couple of years, is up, who's to say Microsoft's like, oh yeah, that entire Call of Duty series going forward it's just a Game Pass exclusive now. They also mentioned engagement when it comes to Call of Duty, which is very important for all of these companies now. Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony all talk about player engagement, monthly active users, and Sony just told us that theirs fell 15%, which, I mean, that seems to be kind of across the board now as people are going outside, but then you see Call of Duty potentially just going to Microsoft completely. Yeah, they're going to do whatever they can to answer these questions in a way that would make this just less appealing for any of these regulatory bodies like the FTC to allow this to go through. Here's the thing, though. It seems like it's going through right now. Like, it doesn't appear that this is going to get blocked, and it seems like Sony is just gonna have to grit and bear and figure this one out, and maybe one of their live service games catches on, and who knows, maybe Microsoft plays ball a bit better. But based on how a lot of people figured Starfield would be on PlayStation after the deal closed with Bethesda, and oh look, it's not, I wouldn't exactly hold my breath if I was PlayStation. In fact, I would start planning right now like Call of Duty won't be there in 3 or 4 years. And it kind of seems like they are with all these live service attempts. I have a feeling one of those is going to be a first-person military shooter to go alongside of Call of Duty, at least in some sort of attempt to compete with it or even replace it on the PlayStation Store. But let me know what you guys think about this one, because it definitely seems like Sony seems concerned and almost actually scared about this happening. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Digimon Survive. It came out last Friday, which Bandai Namco didn't do a very good job telling people it was out last Friday. They also didn't do a great job stocking this game in stores. Let me know if you ran into this, because I went to like Walmart, I went to Best Buy, and I went to GameStop. No one had it, like, just on store shelves. I was trying to find it on the Switch at first, and I was like, fine, I'll just look for it on the PlayStation. And I ended up going online to order it, and it still took like a couple of days after release to get it to me. So it was, even pre-orders, I couldn't get any in. So I don't know, maybe Bandai just decided not to ship many of them out. But we didn't have reviews, so it seemed like people weren't really sure as to what exactly this game was, even though we had previews and different things get out there ahead of time from, well, Bandai themselves and the developers. But this game is more or less a visual novel that also has like strategy RPG gameplay, but it's definitely like 70% visual novel storytelling, and it didn't seem to go over too well with people online. As we can see here, over on Metacritic, it was spotted by NC, where it looks like it's just getting review bombed on Metacritic. In fact, we saw it down to like 1.6 on the Switch, a 0.9 on the PS4, and a 0.5 on the Xbox One. Since then, though, I noticed on the Switch, it's moved up to a 7.4. And while some people seem to say that it has to do with misleading marketing, I just think people were frustrated in general, maybe with the way it was treated by Bandai Namco, but then also the fact that maybe you bought it thinking it was, I don't know, like Cyber Sleuth, like more of a JRPG, and that's not really what it is. Although it is interesting because it definitely leans into kind of the horror aspect, a more mature story that's being told here to go along with Digimon. I'm curious about it. As I said, I picked it up. I'm just waiting for it to still come in, but I'm not the biggest in visual novels. But again, I'm curious about how all of this came together with Digimon Survive. They worked on it for a while, so maybe I'll get a chance to check it out someday with Xenoblade still kind of rolling along now. It might be a little while, but August is pretty open right now, and I think the next game I'll be checking out, I guess, is Saints Row. So if I finish up at least the main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, yeah, I'll take a shot at Digimon Survive to see what it's all about. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, assuming the Microsoft Activision deal goes through, will Microsoft make the new main Call of Duty releases, Xbox and Game Pass exclusives, going forward? Look at this. This is split almost right down the middle. 52% say yes, 48% say no. I kind of think that in like 3 or 4 years time, Microsoft will just be like, yeah, they're just Xbox and Game Pass only releases now. They're saying all the right things, and they did kind of say Call of Duty will just remain on all platforms, but they could be talking about like previous releases, like they're not going to retroactively go back and take away like any of the older Black Ops games or Modern Warfare, anything like that, right? But if you're Sony, like I said, it's so uncertain, just assume it's gone in 3 or 4 years, and they are creating live service games. I thought about the idea of bringing back SOCOM, but that's a third-person shooter. would they turn around and say, you know what, we're going to reboot SOCOM, it's now a first-person military shooter? How would the fan base deal with that? I almost feel like Sony would be better off just creating a new IP that's at least a first-person shooter that could be built over time, like over a decade, and yeah, maybe it can go up alongside of Call of Duty. I mean, that's why they got Bungie, is to be able to deal and create a live service game. Let's see if they can make, I guess, another Destiny just under the Sony flag. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from William saying, I'm a physical over digital person. I have a difficult time finding physical copies of some games. Meanwhile, on the Nintendo eShop, I see tons of games I never knew existed. Plus, there are sales there quite a bit. I can't remember the last time I saw a discounted Nintendo cart digital is being normalized. I still see deals on physical Nintendo carts a lot, like GameFly will do them, sometimes Amazon, but you're right. Digital deals certainly are there to go along with just the overall convenience of buying digital. And it's getting to the point now where I'll go to a store, a Walmart, a Target, a Best Buy, a GameStop, and like even walk-ins on release day are getting a bit less reliable. Like sure, Digimon, but like other titles, I'm kind of running into this where it's like if you didn't pre-order it or at least drop a pre-order in weeks in advance, it's not at the GameStop or anything. So I don't know, maybe some of these companies are also shipping out less cartridges and discs for the Switch or the PlayStation or Xbox. But yeah, interesting times going forward. As I said, I think this is kind of the last generation, at least for PlayStation and Xbox, when it comes to physical games. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the Pokemon Presents coming up tomorrow. What do you hope to see there? And of course, Scarlet and Violet, what do you think they're going to have to show us when it comes to the open world aspect? And then also, what about Sony responding to the Microsoft Activision deal? They seemed a bit concerned, but do you think Call of Duty will really be leaving PlayStation's console in the future? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.